Good evening, everyone. It's time for Necromaniacs. And this week, welcome back, Jeff, who has been on this long journey, man. So what's up? You're all settled in. You moved. You live in Texas now. So what's the story, bro?
Well, the story is, as soon as I crossed the Texas border, I was handed a bolo tie and a Trump 2024 flag. Yeah, I moved to Austin. I've been here about a week now. And, I was telling you off air that things haven't exactly gone wrong, but they haven't gone quite right. The movers, the window was from 8 to 10. They show up at 10:30, which means, we have to leave town late and we don't get into a hotel until like 2 in the morning. We got 2 cats traveling with us. You have a cat. You know how cats are in cars.
Yeah, they don't like traveling.
No, they don't. And, the moving company gave us a window. It's like, it'll be anywhere between 4 days and 2 weeks. So I'm sure you can take a stab at when our stuff is coming.
It's not there yet, is it?
No, it's not. It's not. It's not coming till Thursday. So we're basically in this house, and it looks like we're squatting.
Did anyone call the cops on you guys yet to think that you guys broke into this abandoned house or anything?
Yeah, no, not yet. But I'm kind of waiting on it. We still have a lot to figure out. Trash is on Friday, so we take our trash out, and we go in the next morning. Everyone's trash was taken, but ours. So apparently we did something wrong. But it's just been a lot of running around, getting little things for the house to make it feel as homey as possible, considering we don't really have our stuff. We bought a new TV, and people like to comment about how big things are in Texas.
Well, you know what they always say, man. They always say things are bigger in Texas.
And yeah, it's. I'm finding that that's true. A lot of bugs, which sort of used to bugs being from California and all, but when the sun goes down here, we're like, you just hear this like smacking against your windows, and it's it's moths.
Wow.
And you go out on the porch, and there's big scary spiders and these huge cockroach-looking things, and I don't even know what the hell they are.
Outside, oh wow, man.
Yeah, and then, like I said, we came in here in the middle. When we got here, it was like the middle of the night. We opened the door. This place has been uninhabited for like 4 or 5 months. So there's spider webs everywhere.
That's wow.
Yeah, and little by little, it's starting to feel more like home. Every time you buy something, a rug, a shitty air mattress to sleep on, which our cats popped. So we got to get another one. It's like, you little fuckers. And the funny thing was, even this morning I woke up and I saw there was a spider on my wall, maybe about, 1.5 feet from my head. And my cats are just staring at it. And the thing starts crawling towards the floor. And I'm like, all right, cats, do your job. And they run away.
My cat doesn't like bugs either. My cat runs away from bugs. Obviously, when I lived in Brooklyn, I knew I was very intimate with bugs. There's bugs. Bugs were part of my life while living in Brooklyn, and Loki never wanted any part of those bugs.
Yeah, my cats are the same way. I mean, they ran out of there like it was like they'd never seen a spider before. Maybe they haven't. I don't know. But I've learned that they are not going to be the bug killers that I had hoped they'd be.
That's funny.
But yeah, most of my days are spent running around, running errands, got a job, all that fun stuff, and I have had time to watch a whole bunch of Texas themed movies.
Oh yeah.
I think I mentioned that before. I'm kind of a nerd. I like to, I'm moving to Texas, so watch the movie we're going to talk about today. Set in Texas.
That's X that we're talking about today, actually. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But I watched real quick, Hell or High Water.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good one. Sicario. I guess that's not really Texas set, but the desert, close enough.
The desert. Yeah.
I watched those things. I watched something else, but I failed for it. Oh yeah, the movie we're going to talk about. And Mike, you'll be happy to know I watched Severance.
Oh man, so what do you think of that? That's what I really want to hear what you have to say about it.
I absolutely loved it. It was above and beyond expectations. And you mentioned it was sort of a Legati-esque concept, this sort of office corporate horror uh, mixed with the Twilight Zone and Black Mirror. And aesthetically, it kind of reminded me of Possessor, Brandon Cronenberg's movie.
I could dig that. Yeah.
Yeah, because you got this like futuristic idea and concept, but like when they get to the office, everything's kind of low tech. Like, the computers look like they're out of the 80s and the graphics look really old. And big surprise that Ben Stiller is a big part of the show. I know he directs and everything, but I don't think he's ever done anything quite this dark.
I was surprised too. And it actually has made me really appreciate him more because I just thought he was just some random like funny guy, you know.
Yeah, he's dipped into darker material with, the Cable Guy, but that's still very much a funny, silly movie, just slightly darker than what you're used to with Jim Carrey, at least at that time. And so it's quite a surprise that he was behind this or a big part of it. I didn't know that. And it's the concept really gets you thinking, like, would you do something like that? Would you separate yourself into two different people that don't know each other, even though you're the same person?
Would you do something like that?
I don't know, man. I mean, I would have to really, really hate my job to just have it completely erased from my memory. And, it's like, I love how they go into that. Basically, that, like, they're there their entire lives. They don't know anything that they've done outside of the office. So they leave, and then a split second later, they're back there. That's got to feel like hell.
Yeah, you're just always there. You never leave. Yeah, that must be fucking brutal, man.
I'll say this though, I thought it was just going to be a limited series, and no spoilers or anything, but it sort of, definitely leaves it open for a second season. My only concern is how long can you really sustain something like this? When you have like a really good idea and you draw it out too long, it kind of ruins it, Like when you first saw Lost, like, oh, this is cool. And then 6 years later, you're like, this is fucking dumb.
I don't think it's, well, my hopes are that, because it feels like there's like a conclusion. There's like some kind of climax coming,
Yes,
it feels like they're building up to something. And my hope is that they're just going to, they might have this storyline planned for like 2 seasons or 3 seasons and it's going to end,
Yeah.
That's what I hope at least,
Yeah, I remember Westworld. I really enjoyed the first season, and then I tapped out halfway through the second season. I was just like, this. I thought this thing kind of ran its course in one season, and just sort of got bigger and bigger and bigger and less interesting. And I love this season so much. I just hope it doesn't happen with this. But I highly recommend Severance.
Apple has been doing pretty good with their series that they have. There's another one called Servant that is really good.
Yeah, you mentioned that,
Yeah.
and I know that was M. Night Shyamalan is somehow involved in that. I don't know if he's writing, directing, or producing, but I know he's involved.
And I have to thank our buddy Brandon over at Horror Wolf 666 because he's the guy who told me about these two shows.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
all right. Well, I guess I will definitely check out. So you said it's good?
Really good. And that's the thing, like they're the shows that they're doing, that they're producing on Apple, they're not like these run of the mill, okay, it's a vampire show or a zombie series or something like that. They're very unique, very offbeat, it's like kind of like high concept ideas that they're playing around with. It's cool.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the high concept for sure in Severance, and just like masterfully executed. Like definitely made you keep wanting to watch one more. I think we blew through it in 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, no, totally. But before we get going too far, I want to give the shout outs to everybody. Of course, if you want to listen to a podcast that goes deep into black metal and extreme music, you would have to check out Into the Necrosphere. My co-host at Everything Went Black, Ralph Schmidt, is going to be a guest on Into the Necrosphere soon, so check that out. We have Break the Apocalypse. That's Mike's brother, John Draper. Somehow they don't have the same last name, but
It happens.
they're brothers. Check them out. I just mentioned Horrorwolf 666. And then my good friend Cheyenne from Trivax has a podcast called Iblis Manifestations. And if you're into the occult and spirituality and the left-hand path, definitely check out his show. And last but not least, I always fail to mention that my flagship podcast, Everything Went Black. Some of you guys out there already listen to it, and some of you who don't listen to it, check it out. It's like I got guests. I have certain shows that we go deep dive into certain genres of music. I have filmmakers on there. I've got authors. Our mutual friend Pete Farris was on recently.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, check it out. There's a lot of good stuff going on.
Yeah, man. Actually, I just listened to an episode of that on the way back from my job interview. Your interview with our mutual friend John Lamacchia.
That's right, John. Who his solo record just is about to come out, and he, if you guys want.
John check that out. John's an insanely talented guy, talented musician, artist, and all around great dude. Was a huge help to me when I moved to New York, and we became really close friends in that time. And I'm excited for him, and I'm excited for his record. And check that interview out. It's a good one. Yeah,
John used to play guitar in Candiria. That's another well-known metallic hardcore band out of Brooklyn, New York.
Did some touring with those guys, and they turned me around. When I first heard about Candiria or saw them, I was like, "This is fucking rap metal," But like after playing a few shows of them, I saw there was just so much more to them, and that was so much more interesting, and I became a big fan.
And didn't John help produce your ambient record, the Crone album?
Yes. Yeah. It was the day after the last ISIS show. Randy Larson, your former co-host, came and picked me up in Boston, drove me to Connecticut, and I took a bus up to New York, and John and I just started working on music. He was the first person I thought of when I was wanting to do something on my own, and I know John has some skills recording, and he's just all around interesting musician. He thinks about music very differently than I do, and that's exactly the kind of stuff I wanted. Different perspectives, things like that.
When's that vinyl coming out?
That's a good question. I don't know. I know the pre-order's out. I should probably know, but my brain is so fucking fried right now that I know they probably told me, but I cannot remember. I think it's in the fall.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a fall record, so it makes sense.
I'm gonna see if I can, or I might pre-order a copy of that too.
Well, I'll hold on to one for you if you can. Because it's obviously it's me, so it's gonna sell 1 million copies right out of the gate.
Oh, it's gonna be huge, probably, right?
Huge, triple platinum, easily. People are dying for this shit. Anyway, I talked about what I checked out. What have you been checking out, man?
I've been working like a maniac ever since I got back from this little run of dates that we did, and I just haven't really. The only thing I've been watching is like X-Files episodes, and yeah. And
you have the box set?
Well, no, actually, I do, but it's on Hulu, so I've just been ripping them on Hulu.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's great. I love that show, man. I got the box set, I don't know, like 15 years ago, and I feel like every, 5 years or so, like I'll just run through the whole series. One of my favorite shows of all time.
And I've been reading a lot. I'm rereading Dracula. Like I just have one of these penguins.
Oh, they made a book out of that?
You jerk. There's Penguin. There's a Penguin Classics edition which I bought. Like I have like three or four versions of Dracula, and it's like I don't know. It's cool hardcover with a painted cover, and I was just like, you know what? Let me reread this. It's a great book to reread, and I just was in the mood for it. So I've been rereading that. Been reading Dark Tales by Shirley Jackson. It's like a collection of short stories. And
Nice.
I discovered a band. They're not new, but my buddy Mike G, who plays bass on my forthcoming project Scorpion Throne, and Mike also plays in Windfare and Replicant, and he's just like a great guy, talented musician. But he sent me a YouTube video of this band called Lebanon Hanover, and I just can't stop listening to them. I've been listening to them for like the last 3 days, like straight.
What kind of music?
It's like dark, gothic sort of electronic music, minimalist. It's like very simple beats, like maybe 2 or 3 instruments and, vocals. And it's like 2 people make it. And it's like some British guy and this German lady, Larissa Iceglass. And so I've actually been grown sort of obsessed with her over the last couple of days. Been reading stories about her and interviews and trying to find out all this information, as much information as I can about her.
It's always fun when you find something that like you don't just like, you or become like obsessed, like it becomes like a part of you. You know what I mean?
Oh, totally.
Like when I first discovered, writer Thomas Ligotti, I knew, like I was like, this is going to be my new obsession.
Yeah.
Or, when you discover a band like that, like the first time I heard the first Interpol record, like, oh, this is my new favorite band. Turned out to be pretty wrong about them, but like it's really something when you connect with something on that level. Like it's more than just like I like this. It's like this is a part of me. This is who I am.
The funny thing about this too is like I like to think that I'm in the know when it comes to music. Like I'm like out on the fringes discovering all this new shit. So I was like, I'm just going to share this with some of my friends who appreciate this kind of music. So I hit up like Retta, who listens to this show actually, and I'm like, yeah, have you heard this? And she's like, yeah, I put one of their songs on a playlist that I made for you like 2 years ago. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. And then our mutual friend Sarah, I was like, hey, this is, have you heard of this? And she's like, yeah, I've been listening to them for like 10 years. So.
Yeah, that happens to me all the time. Like I remember talking to our mutual friend, Nicole, and, I remember, hey, like, oh man, I've been checking out this podcast, Last Podcast on the Left. Have you heard of it? And she's like, scroll through your text, dummy. Like, sure enough, like months ago, she was like telling me to like, you got to check this out. This is right up your alley.
That's awesome, man.
Like, yeah, I'm a fucking idiot,
Yeah.
Since this is a horror podcast, I really do got to bring up the fact that David Cronenberg has a new movie coming out, and the trailer dropped last week sometime. Did you see it?
Dude, I am so excited about this movie, man. It looks great.
Yeah, it really does. And I don't know if you know this, but Crimes of the Future is actually the name of one of his, I think, student films, one of his old black and white films before he made Shivers, before he made his first studio movie. He made a film called Crimes of the Future, and it's very, black and white, experimental, very weird. It has some of the touches that are hallmarks you would come to know David Cronenberg by. So I'm curious if this is sort of a reworking of that idea, or he's like, I like that title, I want to use it again.
Could be, man. Maybe the idea, maybe the version that he did when he was a student was like the demo version of this movie or something like that,
Yeah, I mean, it's just great to see the master returning to a subject that kind of made us looks to be like very classic, weird Cronenberg.
I got to say, 2022 is looking like a pretty good year for horror in general. There's been like some good stuff is either coming out or has came out already,
Yeah, it's been a strong year for movies in general. Like there's already been movies, I think, that are definitely going to make my top 10 list of the year. And, on the flip side, I've already seen a couple that are definitely going to make the bottom of my list this year. I actually watched one, wasn't going to bring it up, but I watched that movie Ambulance, that Michael Bay movie. Wow, what a piece of shit. I mean, just absolutely terrible, and it goes on forever. It felt like it was 4 hours long.
That's funny.
Do not watch Ambulance, people.
Public service announcement.
Public service announcement. Michael Bay sucks. Everyone knows he sucks. I don't know why I thought this would be any different. But anyhow, yeah, very much looking forward to Crimes of the Future coming on in June, so fairly soon.
Oh wow, it's right around the corner.
Yeah, and interesting cat. You got Viggo Mortensen back in the picture. Those guys have made some great, two of my favorite Cronenberg movies together. Eastern Promises and History of Violence.
Those are both great, man. That's those are two awesome movies.
I think so too. I think Eastern Promises gets a little overlooked as being maybe a little bit straightforward for him, and in some ways it is. But it's still a great movie that I think only David Cronenberg can make. I mean, a naked bathhouse fight to the death. I mean, who else is going to bring you that?
Yeah, it's I remember my mom was like real excited about that when we were visiting my parents, me and my ex-girlfriend at the time, and we were sitting at the coffee table in the kitchen and drinking coffee in the kitchen rather. And my mother was going on and on about how great Eastern Promises was, and she was like, in that scene with Viggo Mortensen, you can see everything, And I was
like, well, dude, at least you didn't have to watch that with your parents. I mean, I think this is something everyone can relate to, is when you're watching a movie and all of a sudden, like, I remember watching like Lethal Weapon 2 with my parents when I was a kid, and all of a sudden there's, this girl's tits are out, and they're like fucking Mel Gibson, and just, even though I was like really young, I was very uncomfortable.
Yeah, that is uncomfortable to watch like a sexy movie with your parents, definitely.
Yeah, and I just even remember my stepdaughter was telling me she was watching, was watching that show Sense8, and my wife at the time and I were watching. We know there's a lot of male nudity in it, and I was like, well, I'm glad I'm not watching that with you, because it's just stuff like that is just uncomfortable. I don't know, maybe I'm a prude or something, or old-fashioned, but no.
So that brings us to tonight's movie, which is X, which is a new film, and
brand new,
released at South by Southwest on March 13th this year, 2022. Released in the U.S. on March 18th, the year of our Lord, 2022. So yeah, it's brand new. It just came out. I saw it in the theater at the
did you?
The old AMC dine-in down here in beautiful Edison, New Jersey.
Nice. And the movie did pretty well from what I heard or read.
A little bit on the long side. The runtime was 106 minutes, and written and directed by Ty West. And apparently, this was made during the quarantine down in Australia. And to maximize opportunity, he also shot a prequel to this movie.
Yeah, I got some thoughts about that, but we'll get into it.
Okay.
I have it written down as New Zealand. I could be mistaken.
Oh, you're probably right. I just shot from the hip, right now. And I'm probably wrong. You're probably right about it being New Zealand.
But that was a big surprise to me. This really felt like it was filmed in Texas.
Well, Ty West is a good filmmaker, man. One of the things that made me really excited and motivated me to watch this film was he was being interviewed on I forgot which podcast it was that I was listening to, and he was talking about how he wanted to kind of make an old school horror movie again. Where there was no agenda. It was just no pretenses. Just a movie that he grew up watching.
I think that was Mick Garris's podcast.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it probably was Mick Garris's podcast.
Yeah. And he did that, but I think he made something so much more than just a throwback movie. But before we get into that, do you want to do the cast and talk a little bit about the plot, and we'll get into our thoughts and all that?
Totally. The cast, it's Mia Goth as Pearl, that's her real name, but her her nom de plume on stage. Her stage name is Maxine Minx. Jenna Ortega as Lorraine. Martin Henderson as Wayne. Brittany Snow as Bobby Lynn. Owen Campbell, who was also from another film that we really liked, My Heart Won't Beat Unless You Tell It To. And he plays the cinematographer, RJ.
Yes.
Stephen Ure as Howard, and Scott Mescudi as Jackson Hole. So
yeah. Also, is he the one? Let me see. Yeah, that is actually the person who plays Jackson is the musician Kid Cudi. I didn't know that.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow, see, that's how like on hip I am. You know.
Yeah, well, I don't know Kid Cudi's music. I just know of him. He's a MC or something like that. In a not very, in a very different kind of role. A lot of times, rappers take roles as a little bit flashier and like an action movie or something like that. And this, he's definitely got some acting skills.
For sure he does. I thought he was like real subtle at times in this movie in his role.
Very good. Yeah.
The music was done by your friend Chelsea Wolfe and Tyler Bates.
Wouldn't call it my friend. I met her.
Tyler Bates, and you might know him from The Composer. He's done some work with on Dawn of the Dead and 300 and stuff like that. He's a pretty well-known composer.
Yeah, and this score, while subtle, is also very good.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. And it's also cut in with like just some classic tracks from the 70s too.
Right. Yeah. Little bit of the plot details, like you said, like this is pretty much like your standard old school horror movie. A bunch of kids going somewhere to do some things and things go wrong. And that's it couldn't get more simple than that. But Ty West is such a good filmmaker. He makes it just a little bit more complex than that. And once again, like you look at his filmography, he's kind of stepped away from making films for a little while, it seems.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of him doing anything in quite a while, and like I liked House of the Devil. I thought that was great, and then The Sacrament, that was another good one.
Yeah, that wasn't bad. I feel like that doesn't really get its just due. I don't really know anyone who likes it. I think it's good. It's a found footage mockumentary kind of thing, and I think it's entertaining. Does its job fairly well. It's basically a retelling of the Jonestown Massacre, but they don't call it the Jonestown Massacre, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's just some other maniac out in the jungle convincing people to kill themselves.
He made a Western, and I think a few years after that, and I think that's the last thing he did for a while. And I remember finding the Western a little underwhelming.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, well, I did see it, and I don't really remember it, so that kind of tells you, I guess, what I thought about it. But Ty West, probably most known to horror fans for House of the Devil, which was a very 80s retro movie. Big throwback to the 80s. He even digitally altered it to make it look like it was shot in the 80s. So here we are again with him doing something retro, this time the 70s. And I don't know if he digitally altered it or anything like that, but the movie texturally and technique-wise feels very much like a 70s movie.
Yeah, definitely. It has that vibe to it. And what you touched on earlier is that it's a very simple plot. I mean, we have a small cast. They go to a house. They're going to shoot a porn film. There's an old couple who they've rented the place from, and of course, they didn't tell them what they were doing, and mayhem ensues. But the thing that is really good about this film, and it's something that we talk about a lot on this show. When we talk, especially when we talk about new horror, about how thematically filmmakers are so heavy-handed about making statements that it's just so blatant and over the top, and it ruins the narrative a lot of times. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But in the case of this film, they actually talk about like a lot of really interesting subtexts, but it's done in such a way that it's actually just part of the story, and it's not so brutally heavy-handed and preachy as other films.
I'm glad you mentioned that, and I'm glad you noticed that, because I was thinking the exact same thing. Like, I'll probably mention the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre a few times in talking about this.
Well, it kind of makes sense because they're both in, allegedly, well, neither one of them were shot in Texas, but it's supposed to be Texas, right?
Yeah.
And they are similar. I mean, obviously, X is influenced by all these great 70s films like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and I would say even like Last House on the Left and stuff like that too,
Sure. Yeah. I would think the Texas Chainsaw Massacre would watch, the makers of that film would watch this and cry, knowing like this is what our movie could have been.
Exactly. Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, none of the dialogue in this is stilted or unnatural. You really get a sense that these people are friends, and the conversations they're having seem realistic to the characters and the people they are. I also appreciate that, these guys, they're doing fucking coke, shooting porn, but the movie never judges them for that. Like, it's presented as very just matter of fact. Like, this is something that people are doing, and it is what it is. And, in a lesser movie, you would want, they would make them obnoxious, or like every different character would be a certain type, and you couldn't wait for them to die. Now here, you take the time to get to know the characters, and when, bad things start to happen, you feel for them, even though they're kind of fringe kind of people,
Yeah, each character has like, you get the sense that everyone is an individual, and they all have their own stories. Like Maxine Minx, she's like, it seems, my impression was that she was like the new kid on the block. She's like, wants to be a star in the adult film world. She is kind of favored a little bit, and then we have Bobby Lynn, who's like kind of like the old school, she's like the old vet at making fuck movies,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, well, you mentioned like subtext and things. This is another kind of like 70s thing where you watch a horror movie and it's sort of a comment, or it ends up being a comment on the time it was made, like when you look back on it. This movie definitely has that. And like you said, it's very subtle. Like there's a line that the vet tells the new girl, "What's your American dream?" And I really feel like maybe you could look at this movie as some sort of comment about society today.
Yeah, I picked up on that too.
What's your American dream?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like the guy says, "I don't want to wear a hard hat, for the rest of my life, or to earn a living." And the girl wants to, be in this fuck movie to get famous and fame, and that's all you want. And and what's your American dream? And then the movie turns into a nightmare about an hour later. So yeah. I think that's on purpose. I and that's what makes Ty West better at this than a lot of other filmmakers. The dialogue is interesting. Like, you're not just like waiting around for people to get killed. Like, it's this nice slow burn, and during this slow burn, you're appreciating all the textures and the dialogue that's happening.
Well, there's also a lot of different conflicts in this film too, and there's the cinematographer RJ, who's played by Owen Campbell, who was in one of our favorite films of last year, My Heart Won't Beat Unless You Tell It To. Mm-hmm. And he's one of these guys, and it's a common story. He has these aspirations of being a filmmaker, and he's making porno movies to get started in the industry, and he's hoping to cross over. And that was like a dream of a lot of adult filmmakers and actors and actresses in the 70s who did this sort of thing. They were like, okay, this is how I'm going to get my foot in the door for mainstream success. So this guy thinks he's like, Godard or something. He's trying to apply all these, techniques and stuff, and his girlfriend Lorraine is accompanying them on this venture. So she's kind of like the fifth wheel in some ways, and so there, Bobby Lynn is the one who's actually kind of like hard on her a little bit. There's like, this kind of female competitive thing, like showing the hierarchy of who's who. But one of the things that really throws RJ a curveball, and Lorraine is like super uptight. Like she's like Christian. She's like, doesn't know how she feels about all this stuff. She's very, in the beginning, kind of judgmental of what they're doing. But once the film starts rolling, she finds that she starts to get turned on by the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a nice moment that, the camera sort of like shows her face and it starts to turn into like this like smile, like she's finding like she enjoys it. This is something different for her.
Yeah. And then this is where we get the subtle, patriarchal moment in the film where, RJ, who, you think he's like this kind of sensitive artist type of guy, gets that possessive male thing, where because she says that she wants to actually be in one of the scenes.
Right. And all of a sudden this high art concept of his is not, it's she's too good for this. It's really just a sex movie. And, he's just throwing everything out there just to try to stop her from doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's all these conflicts like that. And I thought that was really cool, and the movie it talks about like like sexism and, male, hierarchies and a little bit of, we have a African-American character, Jackson Hole,
Yeah. Yeah. And before that, there's a nice conversation in the movie where they're all sitting around after they've shot their porn for the day, kind of like talking about things that are very relevant today, sexual identity, open relationships, sex and love, the difference between them. Can you separate the two? It was very interesting. I feel like that's a conversation a lot of people would be having today. And it felt, again, very natural to the characters and to the movie. It wasn't just like a bit of exposition. It was just an interesting moment in the movie.
Yeah, there wasn't like this heavy-handed monologue about, patriarchy and racism that you see in like all these other films. You know what I mean? And
exactly.
That just speaks to how like Ty West is just a better filmmaker than a lot of these other people.
Absolutely. And I don't even know if race is brought up in this movie. I didn't catch anything. If it was very subtle. I know his character's a vet. I know that was a nice addition to his character.
Yeah. And then we have the old couple that owns the property. And of course, they see these like young women walking around, Oh, and the other thing in this movie is there's nudity in it, which is, there was like, it seems like there was like this trend of reluctance to have female and there's male nudity in this too. So straight up male and female nudity in the film. And it's become this kind of like uptight vibe in filmmaking over the last 10 or 15 years, maybe, with nudity. And back in the 70s and the 80s, it was very free,
Yeah, absolutely. And like now, if there's a sex scene in a movie or a TV show, there has to be like a consultant on set, if you're doing something with a bigger budget, things like that. And so I think filmmakers are shying away from that because they don't want to get accused of being exploitive or creepy or anything like that. But here, it really makes sense to do. I mean, they're making a porn. Ty West is making a throwback movie to the 70s. There's going to be nudity, and I'm sure, like, everyone signed off on it when they agreed to do the part.
By the way, the name of the film is The Farmer's Daughters.
Yeah.
That's the movie they're making.
And it's kind of interesting. Did you notice the sort of mirroring effect that was going on in this movie?
What do you mean? Like where they're cutting to the actual shooting of the film and then they're showing what it's like through the camera? Is that what you're talking about?
I feel like, no, the film they were making had parallels to what was happening in their actual lives.
Oh, yeah.
Film.
Okay. Yeah. Now I got what you're saying. Yeah.
The lemonade scene. They're shooting the porn. and they're doing like a dialogue scene where he comes to the farm and she makes him lemonade, and they cut it between Maxine, who's having a glass of lemonade with, I believe her name was Pearl, the old lady who lives on the farm. And not only that, like the preacher that's always on the TV, I feel like a lot of the dialogue he was saying was very relevant to what was happening in the movie at times. This is kind of like a weird meta movie without being very obvious about it, like, Scream or something like that.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
There's a lot of things like that going on. Just like little touches like that just make it better than your standard slasher fare. There's also, I gotta say, man, my favorite scene in the movie was, I have it down, Maxine goes swimming.
Oh yeah,
So
this is a great scene. Yeah.
She's waiting to shoot her part. She's kind of exploring the woods, and you see that the old lady's kind of creeping on her, and you think that's what the scene is going to be about, but it turns like she's being stalked by an alligator, and it's so effectively shot. You see these like above shots looking down on her, and this like alley slowly creep into the frame, and she's swimming away, and you see like it behind her, and I just thought that was a really incredibly well shot scene and a bit of foreshadowing danger. There is a little bit of that throughout the movie. She's being stalked by this crocodile. They're on the way to the farm. They see this cow that has just been obliterated by a truck. A lot of like foreshadowing that something terrible is about to happen.
That was a very Texas Chainsaw Massacre part where they have the cow that was the destroyed cow like on the side of the street.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally.
What I liked about the alligator scene too is that it's before any of the action, any of the violence and killings and stuff really start. So it's like a build up, and this Maxine's out there in the water, and she's swimming. It's sort of this idyllic setting, which is like the setting that they're in. It's like out in the country. They're in this secluded house. She's skinny dipping in the water and just completely oblivious to what kind of danger is lurking behind her and on the shore.
Yes.
So there's like surrounded by danger and being stalked by these two predators, yet completely oblivious to it. And then she narrowly escapes being devoured by this alligator. She just gets out of the water, and the thing just like barely, misses her,
Right, exactly. And it's masterfully done, like something you would see out of a creature feature, but here it is in a slasher movie. And that scene eventually does pay off. It's foreshadowing more than one ways. But yeah, that's how we are introduced to Pearl. We've already met the cranky old farmer, who's basically forgets he's rented the back barn to these kids. And you mentioned there's a lot of conflict in that movie. Right away, there's conflict between our gang and the old man.
Yeah.
And he just instantly dislikes him, and he even tells him, "I don't like you. I think you're trying to pull a fast one on me."
And which he is actually, because he didn't tell him what they were doing out there, And the film, the producer has like this like sleazy kind of vibe, you know what I mean? He has like this kind of like greasiness about him too.
Totally, but I never got the sense again that he was like a jerk. He's just a slick.
Yeah, he's slick.
Yeah, exactly. Like you kind of can't help but like him a little bit.
No, totally, and that's the thing. No one, even I got to be honest. Even the the stalkers in this film, like the old couple, there's motivation, like there's reasons behind everything.
Okay, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. We didn't talk about the couple much. I didn't really. There's no exposition in this movie, which I greatly appreciate. Things just happen because they happen. I, was Did they ever really give a reason for Pearl why she's doing what she's doing?
Well, the whole
I,
thing is a you know she wants this is like one of the most uncomfortable parts of the movie.
very uncomfortable. I know what you're about
Yeah,
to mention.
she still is a sexual being, the old lady. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And her husband just cannot. He's just not up to the task. You know, for various reasons, age. You know, his health is poor, and that driving instinct for sex is making her, is motivating her to, oh, we have all these young people here. So, and there's other things that we discover that she's up to that are
yes,
results of her just dissatisfaction, like her unable to like get what she wants. She resorts to these other methods, and I think originally her interactions with the younger group of people is that she's reaching out to them for like intimacy.
right. And they just so happen to be making a porn, and she catches a glimpse of what they're doing, and it sort of ignites something in her. Again, in a lesser movie, I think like this would all be mapped out. There'd be a reason for
Yeah,
this and that, but it just kind of presents itself like this is happening. This is how she is, and I like that. So when I find out they're doing a prequel's already been shot secretly, no, I'm not sure. I mean, necessarily, want to have it all spelled out for me. But at the same time, we get another Ty West movie, so
yeah, I'm real interested in that, and yeah, I mean, apparently he wrote the script while he was being, because they shot this during the quarantine, so he had to like hole up for 2 weeks. So he wrote this, and then they shot it while they were there. So killing two birds with one stone, I guess.
right, yeah. And so yeah, it takes about something's up with this old couple. She's acting very bizarre, but no signs that she's murderous. And then an hour into the movie, things change, and which is interesting because the characters talk about Psycho in this movie and how like you think the movie's going one way and it goes another, and this kind of does the same thing. Say you never saw a trailer or anything for it, you might not necessarily see what's coming.
Yeah.
And it's at this point too that the movie like I kind of found this movie like once it starts getting violent, the movie really sort of plays almost like a black comedy.
Yeah, there is a little bit of a humorous element to it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like as soon as a character turns on the radio and "Don't Fear the Reaper" is playing, I think you pretty much can know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And by the way, "Don't Fear the Reaper," one of the greatest songs ever written.
It really is, isn't it, man? I love that song.
I love that song. I've heard it 8 billion times, and I never get sick of it. It's so like haunting.
Yeah. I just wanted to interject something here. There's have you seen The Devils?
Oh, the '70s film?
Yeah, the Ken Russell movie.
Yeah, Ken Russell. Yeah,
Yeah.
of course I have. Yeah.
All right. So there's an interesting thing, and there's like made this movie made me think of something that I got out of The Devils. Now, basically that movie is about a bunch of nuns that are just screaming to be touched by a man. You know what I mean? And driven insane by that unrequited desire for sexual contact. And a young Oliver Reed rolls into town, and all the nuns are just going nuts over him, but they can't do anything because they're nuns, And
Right.
the head nun, Vanessa Redgrave, is just losing her mind, and she does all this evil shit to Oliver Reed, and he ends up getting they think they burn him alive because they accuse him of being in league with Satan. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that unsatisfied human desire is oftentimes the motivator for evil, and that's kind of like a parallel to this movie, I think.
Yeah, that's more or less what I was thinking. I was just curious if there was more to it. Yeah, I'm kind of curious in that way, like what the prequel is going to tell us about this particular character or this couple.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm with you there. Like, yeah, she's just, and it's maybe even a comment about aging and, feeling old and you don't fit in. You're not one of the young kids anymore. Even, one of the characters when they're having their talk about sex, she's like, old people don't fuck.
Yeah.
And yeah, and this movie proves that to be wrong. Do you want to talk about that scene?
No, I don't. I want to forget that I even ever saw that scene.
Yeah, there is this. It's not like a stigma against old people fucking. It's these two old people fucking. Like the whoever did the makeup did a brilliant job. I mean, they make these two look really terrifying and grotesque. And when you see what Howard looks like out of the makeup, he's unrecognizable. Now, I saw like the lead actress who plays Maxine. It says in the credits Maxine/Pearl. Is she playing the old lady?
It's the same lady. Yeah, it's the same actress.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I didn't even pick up on that.
Now, I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to play it like I know what the fuck I'm talking about. I've never seen her in any. I don't. What has she been in? Like, I don't know much about any of the actresses or actors in this movie.
Mia Goth. I know she's been in some things. I can't think of anything.
Her name is so familiar, but I don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I know the girl who played the veteran porn star. She was in those Pitch Perfect movies. Those sort of PG-13 comedies that, for a mass audience. So it was really kind of crazy to see her take on a role like this.
Yeah, I don't think the movies that these actresses were in are just not something that, they're not films I really would have watched. I do know that, Mia Goth is, with, or maybe she's not with him anymore, but she was with or is with Shia LaBeouf. I know that.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that guy is kind of pretty much fucked himself out of Hollywood, I think.
Oh, he got Me Too'd as well.
Yeah, I believe he got accused of hitting one of his girlfriends and just in general being a real asshole. Which,
wow.
If you've seen any interviews with him, it's very believable that he would be an obnoxious prick. Okay, so I'm looking at. She was in a film called A Cure for Wellness. Did you ever see that?
I haven't. No.
And made her film debut in Lars von Trier's Nymphomaniac. I know you saw that.
I definitely saw that. And actually wasn't Shia LaBeouf was also in that.
There you go. Yeah.
So that's where they met, I guess.
Not so much a fan of that one. I think Von Trier missed the mark with that.
Yeah, it was a spectacle. You know what I mean?
It was something.
Yeah, it was definitely a spectacle.
But yeah, you have actors doing, it's a lot of nudity, not something you used to see Britney Snow doing. You play the veteran porn star, and you got Kid Cudi, musician, doing a full frontal scene. And I have to, I wrote down prosthetic with a question mark.
Oh, his piece? You think that might not have been his piece?
I'm not entirely sure. If it is, good for you, Kid Cudi. I mean, it was just, I don't know. It was almost comical. I don't know. I couldn't really say for sure. But it looked a bit fake to me. I don't know.
Oh, maybe. You want to know something funny? This just made me think of it. You spent a lot of time on the road, and
sure.
in green rooms across the nation, right? It's like, how many dicks have you seen drawn on the walls of the green room?
Oh God!
But you know what's really funny about that is like all the drawings of dicks that I've seen on the walls of various green rooms have always been so detailed and like you know what I mean, like really well rendered. And then when someone draws breasts, it's like a 4-year-old kid drew them. You know what I'm trying to say? It's like
That's a good point. Yeah, I guess if you look at your a dick every day, which
it's like so funny to me.
you get a good idea of what one would look like if you. What I'm more interested in is the psychology of like why you feel the need to draw it on a wall.
I don't know,
Like,
man.
but that was our biggest joke on tour. You can't draw a crowd, draw a dick.
That's a good one, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I would. If I had to estimate, I would say it's in the hundreds.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure, the high hundreds.
Yeah, for sure.
Every club has one somewhere. There's a dick on the wall in the green room. Yeah, that's fucking amazing.
We got to figure out if this is if that was actually Kid Cudi's pipe that he was showing on the in the full frontal scenes. I don't know. We'll have to follow up on that one.
I'll do some research. I don't know how, but I will figure this out.
Now let me ask you a question. I think it's fucking awesome that when you can have that kind of freedom. I think it's like I know that exploitation. I think it's fucking cool that actors and actresses would just be naked and not have a problem with that. And there's no politics, I don't think. I just think it's like we're making a film. I'm totally cool with being naked. I don't feel exploited. I'm getting compensated well for this kind of thing. And I'm being artistic about it, I think that's cool.
I agree. And I think to be a really good actor or to be really good at there has to be a fearless element to what you're doing, to really, really go for it. So if you think about it, as an actor, you have a lot of potential to maybe embarrass yourself. I mean, we don't see it as the audience, but they're standing in front of like 20 people with microphones and cameras on them, and say, you're really going for it, and you might look stupid. The director might yell cut and be like, what are you doing? But you have to be willing to take that chance, I think, to be really great at what you do. I
agree. And they kind of reflect that a little bit when they're shooting the farmers' daughters too, because like you kind of see behind the veil of what it's like on a porn set. It's like it's like not sexy. You know what I mean? There's just people in the room. There's Lorraine is like kind of at first judgmental, but then she's getting turned on. She's like probably the only person who's actually turned on in the whole crew. Besides the people that are fucking probably, I guess.
Yeah. Well, even then there's like a scene where like the veteran porn star was like, oh, you don't think I'm performing? And then she goes on to show just how
that's
easy
right.
it is for her to fake it.
Yeah, totally. So it's cool how they did that whole thing. I don't know. There's something in all that stuff we just talked about that is like in this film that I find very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And that all of this is done in the name of a very deceptively simplistic slasher movie. This is what I know saying elevated is like a big no-no now, but this really is so much better than like some cynical kill teenager slasher flick. There's more going on. There's a lot of passion behind the camera and in front of the camera. This is a great movie.
And to speak of cynicism, there's no doubt that we're comparing this to the Reese's piece of shit like Texas Chainsaw Massacre that came out.
Right?
What I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like I found that movie to be very cynical.
Yeah, I did too. Just in its nature, like the way it was being sold, like this is a direct sequel to the original. Like this is we're bringing Sally back. It's like if we just throw a bunch of like shit we think people want at the wall, people will watch this. But it didn't feel like there was any passion for the movie or its legacy or anything in that. It just felt like this hollow, empty, stupid cash grab. Like, oh, if we throw like a lengthy murder scene in there, people are gonna love it. And some people did. And I saw this argument: what's wrong with liking like a fun horror movie?
Well, it's not that fun though. That to me, honestly, that movie wasn't
exactly.
Fun,
This, while it's graphic and gory and creepy, it's a lot of fun. It knows what it is. It has a sense of humor, but it also it's so much more than that. It has interesting characters, interesting dialogue, things that make you think a little bit more than your standard guy in a mask kills a bunch of kids.
Exactly. Yeah. And I hope this is a return for Ty West, man, because I really thought this was a great follow up to the last film he's done, which wasn't even a horror film. But I really hope that I imagine Ty West like watching all this stuff happen and being like, I got to put an end to this, so I got to start making horror films again.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm going to show you fucking how it's done.
Yeah.
And I believe he did, man. I was mentioning earlier, like, it's April. I've already seen some movies I think will make my top list of the year, and this is certainly on that. So if we're talking grades, what would you give this?
I give this a 4.5, man. That's how strong I feel about it.
I give it a 5. That's
You
how
do?
strong I feel about it. Yes.
Wow. Okay, great. I almost gave it a 5, man. I almost did, but that's awesome, man. Great. Yeah.
I can't find anything I didn't like about this movie. I can't point to anything I think is a flaw. I think this is just a good idea, executed perfectly. Great movie, and then welcome back Ty West. It's great that he's back making these kinds of films. Like I said, I'm a little conflicted about a prequel to this, but ultimately we're getting a new Ty West movie, and that's a good thing.
I trust that he's going to do something interesting with it. Like, I don't think he's just going to cheese out. Like, I think that the prequel is going to be interesting. Hopefully it's not something we're expecting. You know what I mean? It's going to be some quirk that's going to make it interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, this movie has it all. It's very darkly comedic. It's gory as hell. It's just, perfectly executed. Good shit. Don't watch it with your parents. It'll get awkward.
Yeah, if you watch it with your parents, definitely you'll be uncomfortable for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, great movie. I'm glad we decided to talk about this, and it was a great thing to sit through a second time. Sometimes when, I'll usually watch a movie we cover twice, and sometimes it'll be a fucking slog to get through. But this was like just as exciting as the first time I watched it.
I'll probably get the Blu-ray when it comes out too.
Oh, for sure. Like, I want to play that like crocodile scene on a loop on my TV mounted on my wall.
Yeah.
It's just one of the best scenes of the year. Like you said, we're getting a lot of good stuff this year.
There's a lot of stuff I'm looking forward to, man. Like, for example, like we talked about Cronenberg's new movie. There's also The Northman, I think tonight opens.
Yes.
And I'm toying with the idea of trying to catch a late show over at the old AMC there. And there's that Moorhead Benson and Morehouse.
Benson and Moorhead. Yeah.
Benson and Moorhead movie. It's coming out. In the dirt, in the ground, in the dirt, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's all that, and we already got The Batman, which we covered on the show. Rewatched that. It's on HBO Max now, and happy to say it plays just as good on your flat screen TV as it does in the theater. It's still like that's definitely a top 10 of the year for me, no question.
Yeah, I've been thinking about definitely. That's a long film, so you need time. You know what I mean?
You do, yeah.
Like I said earlier, I've been I haven't left my house in like 2 days. That's how hard I've been working right now, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, you're just on tour, so you gotta catch up.
No, well, yeah, that, but also sometimes shit just gets crazy at my job, and you got to do what you got to do, So I've been just grinding I haven't even gone to the gym. I just been sitting here. I worked until from 7 a.m. till 9:30 last night.
Jesus.
And then today was 7 a.m. till about 5:30. And then I got to work on Sunday. And then Monday, probably everything will be done. And I'll be able to move on to something else. So,
Yeah, today I think was the first day I wasn't running around doing things for the new house or doing yard work. I just had a day to just sort of chill. My girlfriend is back in LA for work for a couple days, and the sun is going down, and I'm alone in this creepy house in this new city I don't know very well.
Did you find a secret passage or something like that in the basement?
You know what's funny? I kind of not really, but I think it was the morning after the night we moved in. So yeah, it was like, we couldn't find my cat Edgar anywhere. And when we first moved in, like the night, they started banging all the cabinets. They're still doing it too, because there's cabinets on the ground, and there must be some sort of latch there, and the cats just sort of knock him around all night. And so we figured he got into one of those. So we look in all, and we couldn't find him. We look in the one in the bathroom. We see there's a hole in the cabinet that goes under the tub, and we just see his eyes glowing back at us.
Hell yeah. Nice.
And we're like, our cat just discovered this weird hole that leads underneath the tub. What the fuck is going on down there? Maybe it's a thin spot where something from another dimension can come through.
That's what I would think it was, for sure.
Yeah, and he was just in there, and like he did not want to come out. Like, cats only weigh what? Like, he's a big boy. He's probably like 15 pounds. But you grabbed him, it was like trying to rip uproot a tree. He just wouldn't budge. So we put cardboard over the hole, and I fully expect to see a gremlin shape, smashed through that cardboard at some point. Some creature is going to come from there.
Did you know what happened to the former, occupants of this house?
I do not know. I was really tempted to ask. And I ran into one of my neighbors the other day, and I was fully expecting, like, what happened in that house?
Yeah, like some Stephen King shit, like.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes
I don't believe in ghosts and things like that, but I kind of get spooked easy. And when you're in a new house, all by yourself, it can be a little spooky.
I got to be honest, man. Like when I first moved into my apartment, the first couple of nights I had a hard time sleeping.
I'm sure you did. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny, as I was at Barnes and Noble I was going to pick up Peter Ferris's new book, but they didn't have it yet. So I was like, oh, cool. I'll just go to the horror section. By the way, the horror section of Barnes and Noble in Austin is a fucking joke.
Dude.
Really bad. I found this big book of ghost stories, and I was about to buy it, and like part of me is like, do you think that's a good idea? You're home alone for a few nights in this brand new house, and you're going to read this? You know how you are,
It's funny that you mentioned the thing about Barnes and Noble, because I just posted something on Instagram, because something funny happened like earlier. It was like this is like never happens. I was driving to the gym, right, and I saw that I was going to be late. Okay, because like we start training at 6, and it was like I'm like, oh fuck, I'm going to be late. And then if you're late, you have to do burpees and stuff like that. So I'm like, fuck, I don't want to do burpees, man. So I thought about just going to the 7 o'clock one and not doing 6 and 7, whatever. So I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not even going to go tonight. I'm just going to go to Barnes and Noble. There's a Starbucks there, and see if I can buy maybe they have something interesting, like an older like Adam Neville book that I haven't read yet, or something cool, right? So I went in there. I'm walking around the store, Barnes and Noble, and I'm like, do they even have a horror section here anymore? So I asked the lady, I was like, excuse me, do you have a horror section? And she's like, oh yeah, it's over there. It was like literally inside like another section. You know what I mean? It was like surrounded by the fiction section, and it was two shelves. That's it. Just two, those like shelving units. And same. It was ridiculous. I'm like, why not? Why even have that?
Yeah, it's like trying to find like the automotive section in Target. It's like half a wall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember, my ex-wife worked at Barnes & Noble in New York City, and they had a really good, well, maybe it wasn't really good, but it was good. They had a good horror section, and it always started with anthologies, and then, alphabetical. And horror anthologies was like my thing. I would just grab one and buy it because, there's bound to be some author you never heard of before that you're going to fucking fall in love with. That's how I discovered Ramsey Campbell, Thomas Ligotti, Ted Klein, guys like that. And this didn't have one anthology. I
And
thought that
and
was
you know
weird.
the funny thing too is like horror is kind of popular again. You would think they'd want to get with the program.
You would think. I don't know. Like maybe it's a regional thing. I don't know. But like, yeah, this. I left empty-handed. You know, they had every Stephen King book, every Joe Hill book, a bunch of people I'd never heard of, and you know, not one anthology. And that's usually how I go. Like, I'll find an author I like, then read one of their books, and you know, see if I'm gonna, you know, if I'm a fan or not.
I love anthologies too. I still read a lot of anthologies, you know, and
Yeah.
especially if I look and I see there's an author that I already like as like the anchor. I'm like, all right, cool. At least I know. And then I'll just go through the whole thing, and usually I find like one or two, you know, authors that I really like as a result of that.
Yeah, you know, there was a yearly thing for a while. I don't know if you remember this. I think the editor's name was Stephen Jones. He did a thing called the Mammoth Book of Best New Horror.
Yeah. Yep. Totally.
Yeah. And there was like one that came out a year. And, you know, I was talking to Bell at the awesome bookstore, Dark Delicacies in Burbank, California, which pretty much specializes in horror. I was like, hey, are those things still a thing? He's like, nah, man, they haven't existed. They haven't been a thing for a while. And kind of bummed me out, you know. I was kind of hoping like, oh, I'll pick up. I haven't picked one of those up in like 5 years, you know. And turns out no, they haven't been making them.
Yeah, man, it sucks. You know, I mean, there's a ton of other stuff out there though that's like pretty cool. You know, I subscribe to Weird Tales, like the new they kind of resurrected it again, and like when issues come out, I get those, and there's always like that's pretty well curated. You know what I mean?
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. Yeah,
Cool.
that's
Well,
cool
all
stuff.
right.
You know, it's on Kindle. I subscribe. There's a magazine called Dark, which is like it's $1 a month. So I get that on the Kindle, and Nightmare magazine. That's like another one that's like you know I think it's like $150 a month or something on Kindle, and it's just they're all just anthologies. There's like maybe 10 stories or something like that, and it's just really cool.
Yeah, and if even half of those are good, that's a pretty good batting average, you know. Like
Yeah, totally.
that's awesome. Well, I'll have to check that out. And everyone who's actually still listening, check out X. It's incredible.
All right, guys. Talk to you next week. Take care.
Verlaufen